Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's webinar number 79. Tonight is to share or not to share. Tonight is, we've been joined by an amazing panel of guests who will be talking us through being a care experienced social work student or a care experienced social worker. I'm really looking forward to tonight because it's one of those webinars where I can just sit back and learn. I've got my notepad ready, learning from experience here and learning from the expertise that we've got on our panel tonight. I'm also really fortunate that it was two of our Social Work Connect team members who have helped to set up the webinar tonight. So David, who you will see every week, and Dave is normally the one that's busy in the chat and bouncing about with everybody and helping out in the chat. And then we've got Mary, who was one of our very original team members. Mary also has worked with David on putting tonight together. Unfortunately, Mary's not able to be here. Something's come up. Well, tonight I'm going to sit back and I am going to really learn a lot from listening to the contributors tonight. So thank you very much. I am going to just go on mute and hand over to you, David, if that's okay. Looking absolutely fabulous tonight, David. So thank you.
Three times you've made me blush tonight, so thank you. And yep, Kelly in the chat telling you you're doing a great job. I know she'd be proud of you. So thank you very much for opening, Siobhan. And it's great to have that chat going about what care experience means to people. I used to explain it as growing up under the care of someone that isn't your parents, really. But then obviously that's broadened since I was in care, and it's now you can be looked after at home, you can be looked after in foster care, you can be looked after by your aunts, your gran, you can be looked after in a residential home, secure care. There's so many different aspects to it, and I think that's why this is important to discuss, because there's so many people at uni don't even realize they are care experienced, and then when they do, they need to decide when it's okay for them to share their own experiences. And I think that's important. So that's why I thought tonight was a great webinar to do. And I thank you guys for helping me host it. I won't take much more of your time because we have some great care experience speakers with us tonight. And I'd like them just to have the moment to shine. First up, and without further ado, we have Roxy, the legend. So please do welcome Roxy and get involved in the chat and just listen to what she has to say. Hi, Roxy.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm Roxy. Normally Roxanne, but that's only when I'm kind of in trouble, so I do prefer Roxy. So yeah, I'm here today. Obviously, it's a really important topic for me, and I've had quite a positive experience with it. So actually, I wanted to kind of share my experience. So from the age of around 3, I kind of become a looked after child and spent pretty much my whole childhood in the care system. And I left care system, around 19. So I was classed in as like a care leaver. And then an opportunity for a job come up at my local authority that was actually my corporate parent. And the job role was targeted for care experienced individuals. So yeah, I was really fortunate to get the role. And so I think from entering that job role at such a young age, like 19, going through the transition of finding out who I was, learning about my past, really helped me actually. And I found it really, really therapeutic in terms of really exploring who I was, where I wanted to go in life and what I wanted to do. So because the role was for care experienced individuals, it obviously alleviated that pressure of disclosing because they already knew. So yeah, I think that just made such a difference to me. So from entering that career so young and being so open, that's kind of all I've known now. So yeah, throughout the rest of my career now, I'm very much open about it. So I'll start back. So basically, yeah, I'm now in my final year for my degree. So the end is in sight. And I just think even the transition of going into university too, again, I was really open about my experience. Because as you'll all know, every interview, the questions will be, so why do you want to be a social worker? And for me, you know, my experience being in the care system is absolutely my motivation and my drive to why I want to help make a difference within the system. And I think no matter the experience, positive, negative, you learn so much from them. So for me, an example being that, you know, even in terms of the university course, you know, it can be really thought-provoking, resonate with your own experiences. Obviously in my final year, we're covering wellbeing at the minute, which really is very close to home. I remember our lecturer playing an audio and I was like, that literally sounds like my life. So obviously it can be really quite challenging, but where I have the openness about my experiences, you know, my friends in the class will look around me, I might get a WhatsApp to say, are you okay? You know, and that just means well to me. They just really are thoughtful. I then have the opportunity to debrief. But what I also love about it is that people ask me questions, because it really isn't often that you can go into a role of living through that experience and knowing exactly what it is that you want to do. You recognise the areas that were great, but you also recognise the areas that were flawed. And you can kind of use your experiences to say, look, I think if we look at it from this perspective or from this direction, you know, you can just get a general view of it. Because it could be the most simplest thing. So I remember as well when I was in the role that was for care experienced people, my supervisor role kept changing, and I just made like an off the cuff comment, and I just said, God, it's like being back in care when all social workers used to change. And my manager turned around to me and she said, do you know what? That's why you're here, because no one else would even think of that connection. And that's exactly why you're here. So you can speak on behalf of other looked after children and just make us see it from your viewpoint. So I think it can just be really, really powerful. And like I say, I think it's so healing, and obviously everyone will be different. But for me, I find talking, being open, really enables me to move on, face it, deal with it, be aware of myself. And yeah, I think I've got to the fine age of 31 where I finally feel really happy, really content. And I absolutely believe that being on the degree course has really done that for me, and having the opportunity of having such great support network. And yeah, I just hope that by being open and honest about my experiences, that others may think, oh, do you know what, maybe I would do it. But obviously I absolutely recognise that it can be really difficult and you don't know how it will be responded. Luckily, I'm very fortunate that everyone that I've shared to have been absolutely amazing, very, very kind. You know, just that checking in after appointments or when I'm doing something that can really be thought-provoking, they just take that time aside and just say, how are you doing? And yeah, it really, really does help. So I absolutely love supervision, and I think having that good relationship with your supervisor is such an important role, especially in social work and how challenging that role can be. You really do need a safe space where you can just kind of let go and just say what you need to say and kind of address it. So I think if anyone was still questioning whether to disclose, I really do think that you should really maybe consider at least just disclosing to your supervisor. You know, from being in the career from 19, really quite young and naive, to now being like a woman, I suppose, not quite fully grown yet, but I'm getting there. Yeah, I've really, really learned so much about myself, maybe why I feel the way I feel, how I felt then, looking back now, maybe what I'll do different, but also just really holding my experiences close, learning from them and recognising that they do kind of shape who we are today. And as much as it's a very difficult and challenging journey, would I change it? Not really, because I really do believe it's made me who I am. And yeah, I hope that everyone else kind of gets to feel like this at some point when you've kind of come to peace with your own past. And that's only really how I can describe it, is that I've just come to peace and I've healed. And yeah, in the process of it, I'm hoping that I can enable others to maybe make that step too. Yeah, I do think it's something that's so important. And even just going back to uni too, you know, some of the modules, your assignments, there's sometimes where I'll keep putting it off and I think, why am I doing this? Why am I just putting it off? Like, I know I've got a deadline, just do it. But actually, because it's something that's so close, it's like it can go two opposite ways. You could talk about it a little bit and think, oh, okay, or I could talk about it all day, but the references are what get me. But yeah, so, and then sometimes I just can't put it down because it is such a subject that's so close to my heart, and I think, oh, I just want to speak all about it. So yeah, like at present, obviously doing wellbeing, I'm doing an assignment at the moment, and I've obviously chose to focus on the marginalised group of care experience individuals. So yeah, I'm in my element, really, really enjoying it. And I just think that doing the social work degree has definitely opened so many doors for me, and prepared me kind of to enter into this crazy, challenging role that I'm absolutely going to love. It is definitely my heart and passion and my drive to, you know, keep doing what I'm doing. And that, yeah, okay, there's days when it's hard. I won't deny that there hasn't been tears shed, but, you know, we all get there in the end. And I think that it's just really good to recognise just that you do have good people around you and you can let your guard down and it's not going to be used against you. And actually, my whole cohort are so supportive. I know many of them are here online just to watch me and support me. And yeah, I think it's, yeah, it will never be undervalued. And I think that if you can just take that courage to share, that again, it's your story. You share what you want and what you feel comfortable with. I don't obviously go into graphic detail about anything, but you know, sometimes in lecture, my class will ask me questions, and I think absolutely that's what I'm here for. If I can give you some insight that you may not get anywhere else, that's exactly what I'm here for. And I do feel like that's kind of my purpose and drive, to just kind of provide the information that you can't get out of the textbooks, that you can't learn from a placement. You know, you have to be in it, see it through my eyes, my experience. And obviously I know that's limited to me, but it's still some insight that you just can't get anywhere else. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, you absolutely smashed it, Roxy. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us. I'd take a minute to breathe and just calm yourself down again, because that's a lot to talk about. And then I would absolutely recommend you look back through the chat function, because it's absolutely gorgeous and everybody loves you. So, and people really resonating with your quote. So just for me personally, I think I resonate with so much of what you're saying about that. Just being open and honest is really helpful. Obviously it's a hard decision, so don't pressure yourself, but if you can make it and do that, take that little leap, then it could be really helpful. So yeah, I just want to reiterate what everyone's saying in the chat, and thank you. So thank you for being brave.
Thank you.
So next up, we have the incredible Rowena, who came to me on Twitter and then was like, oh, I might be too old. And I'm like, nah, you're never too old. Like, what are you talking about? So let's give another large, really warm welcome to Rowena and listen to what she says. Forensic social worker has totally hooked me in, I would say. Like, I've heard about it, but all I can think is CSI. That's all I can think. So without further ado, Rowena.
Yeah, it's absolutely that, David. It's just like on the telly. It really is. People often think I'm a pathologist, but as soon as you say forensic, that's where they go to. Hi, so I'm Rowena. A bit older than most people, but I was in care in the mid-80s till a little bit later. And I suppose just listening to Roxy's story and how good it is that people can be so much more open now and take advantage really of that experience and use it is just phenomenal. I took the long road, but the long road did lead to me working in mental health. So I'm working in mental health and at LD now for about 20 plus years in different roles, all of which have been useful to the role that I've gone now. But I'm finding more and more now, as I'm getting older, that some of those early experiences are really feeding into my practice. Things that I've maybe not thought about for quite a long time are coming up. and there's some quite important features to me. Now, I don't discuss my past with the people that I work with for obvious reasons. I have quite a statutory role. I socially supervise a lot of people in the community, so I need to be quite careful and guarded whilst being quite real. It's quite a balance, and it was something I really worried about with this role because that's not me. I didn't want to work for a local authority because I wanted to get away from that. I wanted to be in the NHS where I thought I could be more creative, and then all at once I find myself liaising with the Ministry of Justice on a regular basis, which flies in the face of it. But I think I make it work. The feedback that I'm getting is good. The way my experiences have really helped me, I think, more are those and the quite powerful times when I'm with other colleagues, maybe discussing somebody and the background, and people can make comments without even thinking that there might be anybody in the room that might have had a similar experience. So to say to them, yeah, well, my past is very much like that past there. I'm not quite sure why I've been lucky enough to get to where I am, but I do know that a lot of the people that I was with when I was younger haven't made that journey with me, haven't been successful. I've recently come back to the actual area where I came from, which I swore I never would do, and finding that people really haven't moved on. And that can be quite difficult. But then those experiences have given me so much. It makes me a better practitioner because I've experienced some of those experiences that people have had and can empathise in the truest sense of the word. And that should never be underestimated. It makes me a bit more inquisitive. Professional curiosity is a fabulous thing. And I think my experiences definitely feed into that. But the one thing that I really wanted to talk about today was a little bit of my story and about how that's reflected now and how I've been kind of recognising that without recognising that probably for quite some time. So I'm always really interested in people's stories, in the narratives. And I don't really mind if there's evidence to support it or not, if their story differs from everybody else's. I'm interested in what they want to tell me for whatever reason that is. And the more I've thought about it, I've realised that nobody ever asked me my story, never. So from being 12 to 16, nobody asked me. My parents kind of ran the narrative. And the first person that asked me was a solicitor, because they were trying to put quite a robust care order in place to move me into secure care because I was that much for trouble. And I was asked if I agreed to it or not. I said no, so I was allowed a solicitor. And he asked me my story and I told him. I remember my key worker was there and her mouth just fell open. And he turned around to her and said, have you ever heard this? And she went, no. Nobody had ever asked me my story, and that changed everything. I left care at 16. Whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, because then I was homeless for 4 years, but it made me quite independent and gave me quite a lot of power in realising that I could use my voice to get heard. And I hadn't really thought about that for a lot of time until recently. When I was talking to a colleague of mine, we were talking about pedagogies and the importance of stories and narrative. I myself have done quite a bit of research that's been qualitative, and it had never struck me even then. But more recently, I'm finding when I meet people, I really just want to hear their stories. And people enjoy that connection and that genuineness. And I don't have to share my story. I think there's an understanding that I have some understanding of how important their story is to them just from doing that. Yeah, I think that's about it. I'm really sorry that I'm not better prepared, but I've had the week from hell. So I hope that's been useful.
Rowena, there's nothing to apologise for. For me, that was incredibly powerful. I'm sorry stepping in there, David, but you know, I was incredibly powerful. There's nothing to apologise for. One of the things we've been looking at in our webinars is about professional curiosity, and just that flavouring of how professional curiosity is just part of you. It is really powerful for people to learn. And I think seeing from different eras of the care system as well, because people in the chat at the beginning were talking about how care has been different through eras. So sorry, David, for stepping in there. I'm going to step back again now. Sorry, I shouldn't have, but I just didn't want you, you know, there was nothing to apologize for, Rowena. It was fabulous. It was really powerful. So thank you for that.
Yeah, everything you said was gold, so please don't stress. And actually, something that's come from my work with the webinar team is thinking about, some people asked me my story, some people didn't, but I told everyone my story anyway, because people don't get to ask me, they just get told. And I've been thinking about, when I'm in practice, how I do that and how I do story work with people I'm working with, whether they're old or young or whatever. And we're talking about toolkits and stuff. So
I think I have kind of wondered myself, why didn't I? Why did I not feel that I could just say it? And I think I'd just been conditioned over time.
And I think that's a prevalent thing throughout care. So I think it's really important what you've mentioned, Rowena, and please don't beat yourself up. You did great. Like, so.
But I am a little bit bad. I do enjoy making people very uncomfortable when I tell them at work.
Also, by the way, the fact that you were a few minutes early helps me make up for a mistake. We were supposed to do a poll and I forgot about it. So if it's okay, Chris, we'll go ahead and do that poll just now. This was a question from Mary because she couldn't be here. So if you could all give it a go. And if you want to chat about it further, chat about it in the chat. We'll just give that like 10 seconds.
Sometimes, Dave, people can't actually see the poll. I think it depends on what device you're watching it on. So I usually talk it through. So if I just say the poll says, how comfortable do you feel talking about your previous personal experiences? So actually it works really well, following on from what Rowena was saying, doesn't it? And your options are, you've only got one option in this. So you can either say, I feel very comfortable talking about my previous personal experiences. I feel a little comfortable. I don't talk about them, or it depends who's asking. So they're your options, and you can only use one. You can only vote once, so you need to vote carefully, don't you? Because it says single choice on it. So if you can't vote in it, you might want to put in the chat, because I think a few devices don't let people vote on it, David. I don't know.
I didn't know that, so thank you.
Back over to you again.
Yeah. I like this back and forth. Thank you. And just thank you again, Rowena. It was absolutely great. And people in the chat, again, same as Roxy, go have a read through the chat. It was fantastic. So most people saying it depends who's asking for Mary's question, and I thought that would be the case, but I think it's important to actually reflect on, if you're going to ask someone, like if you're going to be working with someone and just expect them to tell you stuff, then you should really reflect on how comfortable you feel doing it. So thank you all for doing that. Right, I'll stop chatting now, and I will welcome to the stage Victoria, who is an absolute legend. Let's give her a massive round of applause, and she's going to smash it. So.
Hi everyone, my signal. Oh, sorry, Dave, go on.
No, I was just muting myself.
My signal keeps coming and going. So if I cut out, please just call me back in again, guys. Okay. So hi everybody. My name is Victoria, and I am a third year social work student at the University of Essex. And I'll just get straight in with my experience of care. And an emergency police order delivered me to the care system when I was 1, and I spent the rest of my life in and out of foster homes and children's homes up in Lancaster and Morecambe. It was during the 80s, so like we said earlier, things were very different back then. I was never given permanency, so I was always back and forth. And it is my experience that you, as a care experience adult, you can't not share it's with you, it's with me, it's in everything I do. It's the now, the before, and it's what's ahead. So let me explain. So when you're talking with others, sometimes they get the luxury of indulging in their childhood holidays or talking about friendship groups they had while they were growing up. Well, I remember a time I volunteered with my son at school to go to France, a year 6 trip, and we was all preparing the children for their journey, you know, running them through what to do, who to talk to, who not to talk to. And the teacher called out across the classroom to me to explain my experiences at an airport. And it was so matter of fact, it was so blasé, such a normal thing that she expected that I would have done as a child, would be to have gone to an airport with my family. I just remember thinking, an airport as a child, like, I was a foster kid. I got respite. I didn't get trips abroad. And it was so, I was like, oh, I didn't want to embarrass my son. So I just, you know, came up with something goofy and got away with it and thought on my feet and enough to satisfy her so she would leave me alone. But I remember thinking after this, you know, I'm so proud to be a mother, but why did I feel really shameful at the time? And why did I got cross with myself for not standing up and saying, well, actually, I was a foster child. I think that would have been a good, you know, thing to have done, especially working in a school when I was around foster children. But I was unprepared for the question and it made me feel dirty. And I'm not dirty. And again, being in foster care is supposed to be a place of safety and away from harm. So it's always confused me as to why I don't associate it with that, when no harm came to me when I was in foster care at all. But it's that I do think there is a stigma out there that does stop people from talking. As a grown woman, my experiences of sharing have kind of been made for me. So people may comment on my age when they learn that I have a 15-year-old daughter. And I'll often get, oh, you don't look old enough. And as flattered as I am, you know, I love to see their faces when I reply that actually I have 2 sons who are in their 20s. And then I can see them doing the maths and they're looking puzzled. And it's like, oh, okay, so I'll put them out of their misery. So I'll tell them, well, I was actually a young mum and I was 16 when I had my firstborn. And then that completely changes the dynamics. And it's like, oh, how did your parents feel about that? Or, you know, they'll ask me a bit more about, you know, falling pregnant so early. So then I'll share that I was in foster care and my care ended when I was 16. Back then, you know, I left care, I turned 16 in 1999. You know, we didn't have the acts that we have in now to safeguard children up until they're 18 and 21. So then again, that almost gives people an invitation into asking more questions, or when they learn I'm a foster child, I'd be great to hear from the others if they've had it, but I'll often get the tipping of the heads and the oh, I'm really sorry, and oh, you know, it's loaded with pity. And you can't help but feel defended, attacked by that at times, and want to defend, you know, the care leavers community. And it's always such a big deal. I don't mind talking about my care experience. I wouldn't be here sharing it with you guys if I did. I would just like to have a little bit of autonomy over it sometimes. And more than that, I'd give up that autonomy if it meant that if I could just create a bit more awareness that it's such a personal thing, you know. And another thing as well I find is that when people do find out, you know, if you're, you know, oh, you're at university, and they're like, oh, that you're doing so well, and you're almost surprised that your children haven't ended up in care, you know, and it's always like, wow, it's such a surprise because you could have gone the other way. And I'm like, define the other way. What do you mean by the other way, you know? And define successful. Every time someone gets up and out of bed, to me, is a success. I'll never underestimate the challenges people face. You know, when I was 16, I was a mother. I was 9 floors up. I was on benefits. My son's first Christmas, I was homeless. You know, does that sound like success to you? I don't know. It was a tough time, but you find your reserve, and you draw from that reserve and resilience that you had in foster care and children's homes, and your foster brothers and sisters play a massive deal in that as well. And you do move forward, but what your forward looks like is not without its challenges. And being in university, this is my second attempt at university. I tried when I was 21, but it was quite tough having 3 children. I'd gone on to have another 2 by then. So yeah, I had 3 children, all under 5, and I was 23. And it was, I'm going to talk about being up for a challenge. I do think we could be a bit harder on ourselves sometimes. And yeah, it was, I mean, I only failed by 2 points, but it was enough for me to really lose my confidence. And I've learned actually that I've since discovered, the amount of support that was available to me, but there's a clause that you have to actively ask for it. I didn't know that at the time. So my role now is making sure that everybody at university knows what support is out there for them. But it's not an excuse. When I share it with my cohort at uni, I'm not after an excuse for, it's my second time or anything like that. But it is the reason. And I've come to a stage now in my adult life where I won't hide away from my care experience. And I'm almost kind of feel, if I am to trying to think of the word, sometimes I feel kind of dethroned as a foster child, because I'm so proud to be a foster child, even though my experiences were not always pleasant. I'm really proud of the care community, and I will always be proud of us. And I'm just going to round it up now. Siobhan, if you could put my final slide on, please. Thank you. I think I just wanted to leave you with this, and this was me. I was in a children's home at this point, and I think when you're talking to a child, an adult, everyone has a story behind them. We've spoken about narratives, haven't we? And everyone comes with that story, and everyone's be allowed to tell their stories in whatever capacity they want to. But the reason I have shared this PowerPoint slide is because I wanted you to see her, to see me. And because if I didn't share her with you, I would be denying her and hiding her away. I'm proud of her. I'm proud of what she's overcome. And while no one heard her when she had lost her voice in foster care, as an adult, she has found her voice at university. And now she has, all you have to do is listen. And, I could go on and tell you for hours about the barriers foster children have in accessing higher and further education, and the barriers they have in doing that. But, that's maybe for another webinar. But there's another role of when people do, I think what I wanted to leave you with is when people do open up and share their experiences, all you have to do is listen. That's all you've got to do. So thank you.
Smashed it. Yes. All you have to do is listen. Quote of the night. Yeah.
My dissertation is on how to listen to a foster child. Because we lose our voice in the care system. We lose it. And education has allowed me to find it. But the barriers I have had to face to get to education is unbelievable. And it's so hard. It's hard anyway, I'm not the most academic. But it's I don't have that support network. I don't have a mother, a father. I don't have, I don't have any siblings who are alive. I don't have that, and it kind of reminds you of what you don't have. And I don't work from that ethos, I don't, but it really does. So, yeah.
People in the
I'll
chat
zip
saying
it.
they want to read your dissertation, by the way, when it's written. So
Oh, did I? I've got to write it yet. But thank you. Thank you for
No.
listening.
no, thank you for coming and chatting to us. Just as we move on, I just want to make a point from your chat. You were speaking about the importance of foster brothers and sisters, and a lot of people don't recognize that they have such a massive role in our lives. One of my classmates spoke to us the other night. She went to a gig, a musician who was the foster family's birth child, and she wrote a song for all of the siblings that had passed through her house. And she was apparently talking about how she still counts them as her siblings and stuff. And I was like, that is like chef's kiss of wonderful. So
Yeah, they're so important.
absolutely. So thank you, my friend. That was
Oh,
incredible.
thank you for listening. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. So we've got another poll for you guys, and I'll remember to read it this time. But if you don't mind, Chris, that'd be brilliant.
Bear with me, I've got to find the other question.
Oh, no worries. Sorry.
I tell you what, whilst you're doing that, can I just say to Victoria, Maria, and to Rowena, do look in the chat at the messages that people are, and the questions and the comments, and do look in the chat for people's responses to what you've shared, both of you, because they're really interesting. And your poll's up now, David, so I'll step back.
Good timing. So for anyone that can't see the poll, the question is, have you ever asked someone to share their personal experiences and expected that they would simply do it? Yes, no, or I'm not sure. Now, this was my question, and this comes from a personal reflection that I've been doing public speaking since I was 15. And the people that did it were very kind and very lovely, but I think a lot of the time that they asked me to do things, they just expected me to say yes. And I think is an important question, again, that ties back to that comment earlier, that if you're going to ask someone to talk to you as social workers going into the field, whether it's elderly, disabilities, like criminal justice, whatever you're working in, if you're going to ask someone to keep telling you their story, you need to really think about how you would feel. Like, would you say no to someone asking you to share something so personal? I hope that question makes sense. It was a bit wordy. So, and thank you all for taking the time to answer. It's really appreciated. Most people have said they haven't expected it or they haven't asked it, but I thought it was worth asking anyway. Wonderful. Right. So after the incredible Victoria, next up, we've got Zara, who is just the Twitter resident legend. So.
Hello, I'm Zara. So just a little bit of a background on me and who I am. I'm currently 20. I am a first year student, the second time around, which I'll talk about a bit more in a minute. So I did a different university last year, kind of things happened, stopped, and then a different one this year, but I'll go into that more detail in a minute. So I went into foster care at the age of 13. I moved in with my foster parents at the time. Didn't really know what to expect. Obviously, I was quite young. As a young person, I grew up with shows like Tracy Beaker, and that's that kind of only representation you ever really saw. And after being in the care system, you realize it's not a true, representation at all. And so from 13 to 18, obviously had GCSEs and A-levels and all those things. I was really lucky that I got placed with a really supportive family, and one that I've luckily stayed with my entire journey through care. And even now, as a 20-year-old in the holidays when I'm not at university, I still go home and live there. And so I had a really positive experience with my foster parents, and like my foster mum is 100% the person who's made me who I am today. Definitely got a lot to thank for her for. But what I wanted to talk to you guys all about today was universities. So Like I said, I'm a first year student currently, but I was also a first year student last year. So last year I went to a different university, and I had two completely polar opposite experiences. So with University 1, as I've named it, I did social work. That is my dream, that is my passion that I want to do, even still now. But at that university, I was kind of advised to keep these details kind of private and not to kind of share those experiences in class discussions. And I think on one flip side, I've said here, I understand why this could be the case, because obviously sometimes certain people's experiences could be triggering to others. And sometimes even learning about, like, for example, case studies in classes, they can be very emotive. But I think it was all about moderation. I think there could have still been things that I could have taught without, you know, sharing certain details that, like, I could have still shared that could have helped with their experience. But on the flip side, with University 2, which is health and social care, which is what I'm currently studying, and absolutely love it. I'm about 2 assignments away from finishing my first year, which is incredible, and I don't know where the time has gone. I was very open from the start about my care experience. I have been for a long time. I've done a lot of social kind of things, one in my local authority, which was, I grew up in Devon, and one, like, obviously publicly as well, on things like Twitter and with lots of national charities. And so it's been something I've always been open about, because it's nothing that I should be ashamed of. I've learned that as well as I've grown up, that it's who I am, but it's not, you know, I'm not restricted by that. If anything, it's made me who I am today. But they've been very open in the fact that we can talk kind of freely in lectures. And we're all from different backgrounds in my classes. We're all different ages. And I think because we're allowed to be open about all the different backgrounds we've come from, it actually means that we can learn a lot from each other, all the different experiences. So for example, I come from a base where I know a lot about child safeguarding because, you know, I learned about the law as I was going through it. So we've been doing that recently. That's the current module I'm doing. And I've been able to share my experiences of that. Whereas when we were learning about adult safeguarding previously, that was an area that I'd never really touched on. So it was really interesting to learn about, you know, that side of things, and learning from my other classmates and friends, you know, their experiences in adult social care. The only other thing I quickly wanted to talk to you about as well was the support for care experience students, because that was also complete polar opposite experiences for me. So in University 1, kind of the only contact I had was when I moved. I called up to try and find out, you know, what support was on offer, find out who the person was, you know, because I knew that every university kind of had that person for care experience and estranged students. And, you know, they offered a bursary. So kind of the only contact I had with them was to set up that bursary. I never heard from them ever again. And I had a really bad experience the first year. I have to admit, the first year probably was one of the times I've probably mentally struggled the most. I didn't feel I could talk to anyone honestly about how down I was, because I didn't want people to think, you know, think less of me. That was something that I really wish now that I've been open about. But at the time, I just couldn't bring myself to be open about it. But that has definitely been one of the points where I've probably been at my lowest, was at university the first time. So anyway, May came around. I didn't continue with it. I left, and I spent the next 3 months of my life thinking, what am I going to do? Applied for some jobs, applied for a few apprenticeships, but nothing kind of came around. And I was really worried about what I was going to do, you know, in the future, because I still had that dream. I just didn't know how to achieve it. So anyway, circumstances kind of changed. And I knew someone that came to University 2. And that person's become a main support system for each other. To be honest, it's definitely made a big difference. But they said, well, why don't you give it a go? What's the difference? What can it hurt? So I thought, you know what, let's go for it. So instead of social work, I went on to health and social care. Very different, very similar, just a bit different. My goal is still to go and do a master's in social work, hopefully afterwards, and still become a social worker one day. But the support from university too has been incredible, can I say. So when I was contacted them, I was quite concerned about moving because with the first university, I moved 2 hours away from home. You know, I could hop on a train and be there in 2 hours. Whereas now, I live about 8 to 12 hours drive from home. I fly home because it's cheaper and quicker. So I can't just hop home if I have a problem. But so I was very concerned about that. And, you know, also with having the bad experiences from the first year, I had a lot of anxiety, self-doubt. But they were really reassuring and helped me talk to accommodation because I applied through clearing. So whereas I got in on the Friday, my friend who's also at the university, moved on that Sunday. So then I moved a week after everyone else had moved in. So I kind of missed freshers. I was a latecomer. But they helped, and they have a team at my university too that's dedicated to care experienced students and estranged students. And I think that's made the biggest difference because their support is catered to the individual, whether you want to meet once and then just message if you have problems. Or for example, I meet up with my kind of contact every couple of weeks just to have a little check-in, have someone familiar. And I've put here, the main thing is they care. You can tell they care. So for example, they have meetups where we can meet each other. At Christmas, they do a drive so that they can help give everyone who's care experienced a present even. And it seems something so small, but it's something that makes such a big difference. And that's not just for the care experienced people themselves, but if you have children as well, I don't personally, but if you do as well, they also give them to your children and you can just tell they care. And I think they've also made my second experience amazing, and which has actually made me happy this year and which has hugely contributed, I think, to my success kind of this time. So I'm definitely glad I'm, much happier this time, but honestly happy, not, the fake happy I was the first time. I think that's kind of all I had to say to you, but just the difference in caring, make sure you actually care. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. I think I've verbal diarrhea and absolutely just let it all out. Thank you for having me.
There was nothing verbal diarrhea about that. That was structured. That was really well done. You got your points across. You have inspired people in the chat. Go back and read the chat once you've had a chance to breathe. But you smashed it.
Thank you.
Don't beat yourself up. You absolutely cracked it. It's grand. So
I was quite nervous.
You're a legend. Thank you for coming and talking to us. And when you reach that master's, I will be so happy to read your dissertation. So, oh no, sorry, that was my timer. Happy little tune. So, bang on. You absolutely did great, Zara, honestly. And there's a lot of people chatting in the chat about how it was unfair what you experienced, but we're really glad you're in a good place now. Even if it is a 10-hour drive home, like what? But
it's only an hour flight. So we have an hour metro, an hour flight, and then one of our parents pick us up. They kind of take in turns to pick us up. So it works quite well from Bristol.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Right. All right. Well, no, listen, thank you so much. And honestly, I think everyone will, like, if you look through the chat, you'll see everyone agrees with me. You smashed it. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
No. Right. Next, Siobhan. That's me. Look. So, all right. So I won't hold you guys too long, but I made a flippant joke earlier about how everyone just gets told my story, and I actually think that's become a bit of a survival mechanism. You get it out, it's out there, and no one can really attack you anymore. So I'll start on that note and we'll end happy. I think whether you choose to disclose your care experience or not is your choice, and it's personal, and there will be pros and cons to it either way, whether in college, uni, whether you're still in a children's home and you want to tell your friends, there will be pros and cons. My major pro is that I use it as armor. But the cons that come from that I've found in uni, and there are a few of my classmates in the chat tonight, so I apologize if this is news, it's probably not, is that I feel isolated. I have alienated a lot of my class from me because from first year, I've just kind of interjected with my experiences. They were relevant, but I've blurted them out because I felt that was my only way of contributing, and it's taken until third year, the end of third year, to realize I have to take time. I have to give other people opportunities to talk. These aren't bad things. It's good lessons that I've learned, but it's taken me 3 years of. I've got friends in class, and I've got friends who are care experienced in class, and they are wonderful people, but it does feel very lonely and very isolated, and I feel like I've restricted myself by talking about my care experience. I'm very proud of it. I am very proud of it. I had a great time in care, and I've shouted that since I was 15 years old. But it's all I've got. And I feel like by being so vocal about it, I've isolated people who are uncomfortable about the situation. I've isolated people because they just don't want to be associated with me because there's still a lot of stigma associated with care. And I've isolated myself by making myself quite uncomfortable, if I'm honest. Yep. So that's nice and depressing start for you guys. That aside, that's my personal experience. I would absolutely encourage anyone to share their experiences, but just be careful who you do it with. Because, like I say, it can make people feel uncomfortable. It can make them feel alienated from you, which isn't fair on them neither, because they want to be your friend. But if you tell them too much too fast, it can become overwhelming for people, and that's totally understandable. So I think there's a little bit of be absolutely proud of who you are, shine bright, stand up, represent, fight for the rights of other care experienced people throughout the world, and be loud, but just be doing it in a respectful fashion, which I haven't. So I've campaigned in a respectful fashion, and from my pride, I've been involved in law changes. I've been involved in trying to better things for the care experienced people at my university. We've got social groups. We're looking into doing a campaign for social work bursaries and stuff. But I feel like if I had been more careful, those groups would be more robust. There would be more people walking behind me or with me to fight for those rights. And I feel like some of my choices and how I've chosen to disclose have caused a few issues. So I think an important thing to reflect on before you go to uni or in first year or now, if you're a master's student or a PhD student, just reflect on how you're sharing. But important caveat, don't hide it. It is you, it is a part of you, it's an important part of you, and it's an important part of society that we, especially in Britain, attach too much shame to, too much stigma. We subjugate care experienced people on a daily basis. And if we as social workers who have those experiences can't at least accept them, which is hard, definitely hard, then how can we support people that we work with? Few things that I think are definite pros to sharing your experience. Bursaries, the discretionary fund, getting apply to other groups, and like, because your experiences often are so intersectional like that you can relate to a lot of people that you couldn't. Like my brothers can't relate to people from the Congo, but I've lived with people from the Congo. So there's that whole thing. I can go to groups with Congolese people in uni and stuff, and not saying I know their culture, but I've experienced being in care the same as they have. There's a passion that's come from it where, regardless, there's been a few times in my life where I've tried to walk away from social work, but I feel a draw to come back and help people as best I can. And yeah, so I think that's been the biggest pro of sharing my experience, as constantly stoking that fire, if that makes sense. Stoking the fire of the passions and wanting to make a difference in the world, rather than just walking away and going into business or something, which would be cool too, but maybe a social work business like you, Siobhan. I don't know. The other thing I just wanted to say that is, could you hit the next slide actually, please? Is that okay? The other thing I wanted to say is that even if you have a hard time when you're sharing your experience, even if it's just one person that watches you share your experience, you will absolutely help someone. You will make someone feel comfortable in their own skin. You will make someone be proud of their care experience. You will make someone realize they are care experienced, and they will get supports that they didn't know they were entitled to. So please, like, if you're reticent, if you're hesitating about it, just think of that. You will absolutely, absolutely impact on someone's life in a positive way. Here's my little thing on the screen. Be careful, cautious, and courteous. Be proud, vibrant, full of life, but most of all, never leave yourself behind. I am incredibly proud of all of you, all of the speakers, all of the people in the chat who have chosen to share, because even in the chat, that's not a small feat. I am grateful to you. I think you're incredible, and I can't wait to see what you do with the future. So, thank you.
Dave, can I just say something? You know that I never disagree, really. I want to disagree with you, Dave. You said earlier, it's all I've got, and you have so much, Dave. You bring so much to this team every week, the creativity, the poetry. I'm constantly saying, will you just do me a poem, Dave? And it like comes from nowhere, and it's beautiful. And you are very often, Dave, absolutely my rock. And you, that, you know, the last couple of weeks where things have been really tough, you've been there for me, Dave. And that's the thing, you have so much to offer. And I think when you read the chat later, I hope that you'll see that. You know, I think Jenna said, it seems like the world's silent except for Dave talking tonight, and that's how it's felt. You are amazing. You are such an important member of our team. And I know when you started, I was thinking there's so many people who's been to our webinars who know you, think they know you, but they don't know you, you know? And that's why I think it's wonderful the way our team work together and what we all bring, and that we're all different and people can identify with different members of the team in the community that attend. So I don't like to disagree with you, Dave, because I almost always agree with what you're saying, but I've got to disagree with you on that. You have so much, and you have it's not all that you've got. And you've got so much. So thank you. And I'm going to go on to the next slide, Dave, if that's all right with you. Did you want to mention Mad Lug? Did you want to mention that?
Oh yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so the links that I put in the chat earlier, guys, that are way up again. There's several, but one charity, there's lots of charities that do work for us, but Mad Lug are incredible. They create these bags, and if you buy them, like rucksacks, and they do business bags and all of that. They do a whole bunch of stuff. And if you buy one, they donate a rucksack to kids in care, so that they don't need to leave with their belongings in black bags and rubbish bags. Now that seems like a small thing, but the absolute, like the dignity of not walking around the streets with black bags or in a bus with black bags as you transfer from children's home to children's home or foster care or wherever, even if you're leaving to go to your own house, they're fantastic. So if you can't find the link, please just Google Madlug. They're incredible. So thanks, Siobhan.
Thanks, Dave. And then the other, so it's like 2 adverts tonight, isn't it? We're kind of advertising Madlug because we on the team, we love Madlug. And, you know, we've all got a Madlug bag, I think, on the team. We love it. But then the other thing that we're going to advertise is, we've mentioned it a few times, haven't we, David, is this book. So lots of you who come to our webinars will know about the book Outlanders, which came out a year ago, Hidden Narratives of Social Workers of Colour. When I'd worked on editing that, I absolutely thought I need to bring some narratives together from care experienced social workers. I think in the chat you've all said about how amazing our guests have been tonight. And so I asked Mary, who has organised tonight along with David, to help me to edit that book. David has a reflection in there and some poems in there. Victoria Maria's writing is beautiful. There's a beautiful reflection from Victoria Maria in there. It's going to print on Friday. It is a really, really exceptional book. It is full of narratives, just capturing the voices of social workers. So Dave, this is, I think you wrote the slide, so it says social workers who like me and Mary. So it's not me, but it's David and Mary, because David wrote this slide, but I'm stepping in to just talk about it. But the anthology it's brilliant, it's wonderful. The proceeds from it, the profits from it, will go to the very newly formed Association of Care Experienced Social Care Workers, which is a very new organisation. A couple of people have mentioned it in the chat. So the profits from this book are going to go to there, which will support people like the people. I mean, I think most of the people who have spoken tonight are members or are aware of that or involved in that. But that organisation, I think, is so important. You can now pre-order the book. So you can pre-order the book. We don't know quite well. I think the price that we've put on there is the price of Outlanders. It'll probably end up being more, but you will just pay what's on there. We never know how much a book is going to be until it's gone to print and come back, because we work on a not-for-profit basis. So it's going to be about what it costs, really. So if you want to order Insiders, Outsiders, we called it that because it's people with inside experience being made to feel like outsiders in the profession. And I think that's what Zara has demonstrated tonight, that, you know, people can be made to feel like outsiders because of that inside knowledge. So we called it Insiders, Outsiders, but there's a whole story in there as to why we called it that. So David, did you want to say something again now that you've had time to breathe? Did you want to say something?
Thank you for sharing the book, obviously. And thank you, Siobhan, for encouraging people to do the book. You know, when I read Outlanders before, it was in awe. Like, and I'm not a reader, as I've spoken about several times. So I can't wait to read this. I think I'll probably break my heart reading this, but I can't wait for it. Warren's ordered it, Sarah's ordered it, so there we go. And I just wanted to thank you for giving us this platform to talk, Siobhan, and the team, obviously. But yeah. And I'm really thankful to everyone that came to speak tonight. So,
thank you, David. And do you know what we've shown in this webinar? I think what we've shown in other webinars that we've done, and the book Outlanders and Insiders, Outsiders, is, and there's a bit of debate about this going on at the moment. I know I've seen on social media, but if we're going to be trauma informed, people need to tell their own stories. It's not for other people to tell their stories. You've got to find your story, and you've got to be ready to share it when you want to share it. And so these books are people sharing their stories in their words as they want to, with full control over it. And all I'm doing is curating those stories that are incredibly powerful and trying to make sure that social workers in the profession learn from those social workers. I cannot tell you, it broke my heart reading it, this book, because there's so much inspiration in there, but there is also so much oppression towards social workers with care experience. And I hope that one thing that people will take from tonight is, I don't have care experience, but I hope that I can be an ally to care experienced social workers and challenge that oppression that's being faced. So thank you so much to all our guests for tonight. You know, don't you, that we have a debrief meeting, and we're going to go into that now to make sure that everybody feels happy. And but thank you for everybody else. We're going to be concluding the webinar now, but next week is our last webinar of this season. So if you'd like to join us, next week is a team-led webinar. We like to end our seasons with an A to Z, don't we? So we're going to do next week an A to Z of social work skills. We love the fun that we have in the chat where you can come up with your A to Z, and it's just about building our community. So please do come along. I'm hoping somebody's put in the chat the link for next week. Of course, normally, Chris is nodding at me, thank you, because normally David is the king of chat. It's David's job to do the chat, and we've not had him in tonight, so the chat could have been a complete mess tonight, David. We've no idea if we put the right links in, but we've done our best. So thank you ever so much to all of our guests, and thank you to everybody that's joined us. Thank you so much. See you soon. Bye.